Have you ever found yourself shouldering the weight of a responsibility you thought was meant to be shared? I'm Emma, a 34-year-old mom of two vibrant kids, aged 3 and 5. I'm at a point where I feel like I'm living two lives, one where I have a partner, and one where I'm navigating the tumultuous seas of parenting completely alone. My husband, Jake, seems to think that just because he's bringing in the paycheck, my role as a mom means handling every diaper change, every school drop-off, and every sleepless night without him lifting a finger. How did we end up here, and how do I find a way forward? I've been married to Jake for 7 years, and we both live what many would call a typical suburban life. Jake works long hours at a demanding corporate job, while I juggle freelance graphic design projects from home, trying to balance creativity with the chaos of parenting. Our relationship started off with promises of equal partnership, but somewhere along the line, those promises faded into the background noise of daily life. At first, I brushed off the imbalance as just a phase. Jake was working hard to secure a promotion, and I wanted to be supportive. But as months turned into years, I realized this wasn't just a temporary situation. It had become our new normal. I found myself drowning in the daily grind of parenting, while Jake seemed oblivious to the mounting pressure I was under. Initially, I felt guilty for even considering that something was amiss. Wasn't it my duty as a mother to handle these things? But soon, the resentment began to seep in, growing like an unwelcome guest that I couldn't ignore. I started questioning how we had drifted so far from being a team, and why I was left to handle the load alone. The tipping point came one night when our youngest had a fever, and Jake, exhausted from his day, didn't even stir to help. As I rocked my child to sleep, I felt a surge of frustration mixed with loneliness. It was in that moment I knew I had to address this imbalance, but I was unsure how to start the conversation without it spiraling into conflict. As the months dragged on, the weight of carrying the parenting load alone started to take a toll on my health and well-being. I became increasingly irritable, snapping at the kids for minor things and feeling perpetually exhausted. The tension between Jake and me grew, with unspoken words hanging in the air like heavy fog. Our once lively dinner conversations dwindled to the basics of coordinating schedules and discussing bills. Then came the unexpected curveball that complicated everything further. My mother, who had always been a pillar of support, especially with the kids, suddenly fell ill and needed constant care. It felt like the ground beneath me had shifted. I had to juggle visiting her in the hospital, managing her affairs, and keeping up with my work projects, all while trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy at home. With Jake still absorbed in his work, the pressure on me intensified. I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, consumed by anxiety over the mounting responsibilities. The stress was palpable, manifesting in constant headaches and a sense of being on the verge of tears at any given moment. The breaking point came one Saturday morning. I had planned to take the kids to the park, a simple outing to give them some fresh air and give myself a moment to breathe. But just as we were about to leave, Jake received an urgent call from work and had to rush out, leaving me scrambling to rearrange plans and handle the kids' disappointment alone. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of frustration and helplessness. It was as if I was trapped in a loop with no escape, constantly picking up the pieces and adjusting to everyone else's needs while mine were left unmet. I wanted to scream at Jake, to make him see how his absence was affecting not just me, but our entire family. But deep down, I feared that confrontation would only drive a wedge further between us. Instead, I swallowed my pride, plastered a smile on my face for the kids' sake, and took them to the park anyway. As they played, I sat on a bench, watching them, my mind racing with thoughts of how everything had spiraled out of control. I knew I couldn't continue like this, but every attempt to bring up the issue with Jake felt like stepping into a minefield, where one wrong word could lead to an explosion of arguments and hurt feelings. Determined to regain some balance in my life, I decided to take a more proactive approach in addressing the situation with Jake. I started by gently bringing up our division of responsibilities during a rare quiet evening. I expressed how overwhelmed I felt, emphasizing that while I understood his job was demanding, our partnership needed to reflect more mutual support, especially with parenting. Initially, Jake seemed receptive, nodding and acknowledging my concerns. We agreed to try a new system where he would take over bedtime duties twice a week and help with weekend activities. I felt a flicker of hope, thinking that perhaps we were on the brink of a positive change. To support these changes, I also sought advice from a close friend who had navigated similar challenges. She suggested we might benefit from couples counseling to improve our communication and realign our expectations. I hesitated at first, fearing Jake might see it as an overreaction, but I kept it as a potential next step if things didn't improve. However, just as I started to see a glimmer of progress, life threw another curveball our way. Jake's company announced a major restructuring, and he faced the very real possibility of losing his job. The stress of this new development hung over us like a dark cloud, and our tentative steps toward a more balanced partnership quickly unraveled. Jake was consumed by anxiety about the future, and his focus shifted entirely to securing his position. Our conversations were dominated by discussions of job security and financial stability, leaving little room to address the ongoing parenting imbalance. I tried to be supportive, recognizing the immense pressure he was under, but it also meant that my own needs were pushed even further to the back burner. The strain of managing everything alone intensified, and my attempts to find a workable solution seemed increasingly futile. Despite these setbacks, I clung to the hope that we could still find a way through this. I continued to research strategies for better time management and sought solace in online parenting forums, where I discovered I wasn't alone in feeling overwhelmed. Yet the path forward remained daunting. It felt like each step I took towards resolving our issues was met with another roadblock, leaving me questioning whether I had the strength to keep pushing for change, especially with the mounting uncertainties in our lives. The ongoing situation has seeped into every corner of my life, leaving me emotionally drained and mentally exhausted. The constant pressure of handling the parenting duties alone, coupled with the looming uncertainty of Jake's job situation, has created a whirlwind of anxiety that I can't seem to escape. I find myself constantly on edge, the smallest tasks feeling insurmountable, as if I'm trudging through quicksand. Socially, I feel isolated. Friends have started to notice my absence at gatherings and events, and the few times I do manage to attend, my mind is elsewhere. Preoccupied with the never-ending to-do list waiting for me at home, my conversations with Jake have become transactional, revolving around logistics rather than genuine connection, and this distance has only deepened the chasm between us. The emotional impact is palpable. There's a persistent knot of frustration in my stomach, accompanied by a sense of loneliness that seems to grow with each passing day. I crave adult interaction, meaningful conversations where I can feel heard and understood, but even when opportunities arise, my exhaustion often overrides my desire to engage. My work, once a source of joy and creativity, has become another stressor. Deadlines loom like dark clouds, and the passion I once felt for my projects is overshadowed by the sheer necessity of completing them to contribute financially. I fear that this imbalance is affecting my ability to be present and attentive with my clients, a concern that only adds to my stress. Internally, there's a constant battle between hope and despair. Part of me clings to the possibility that things will improve, that Jake and I will find our way back to the partnership we once had. Yet another part of me is haunted by doubt and fear. Fear that this is our new reality and that I'm not strong enough to navigate it alone. This unresolved tension has started to infiltrate my dreams, where I'm often running, searching for something just out of reach. These nocturnal reflections of my waking life leave me restless, and I wake up more tired than when I went to bed. Despite the heaviness, I try to hold on to moments of light, the laughter of my children, a rare evening where Jake and I share a genuine laugh. These glimpses remind me of what we're fighting for, even as I struggle to see the path forward. But the question remains, how much longer can I continue like this without losing myself entirely? After months of trying to find balance, a daunting thought began to seep into my consciousness. What if the only way forward was through a drastic change? The idea of separation lingered in the shadows of my mind, a silent acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, we were beyond patching things up with small adjustments. Contemplating such a move filled me with a sense of dread. I worried about the impact on our children, who loved their father deeply despite his absence in day-to-day parenting. How would they cope with the upheaval of our family dynamic? The thought of explaining it to them left me cold, paralyzed by the potential heartbreak it could cause. Beyond the immediate family concerns, there were also the social ramifications. The whispers of judgment from friends and family who might not understand the full extent of our struggles played on a loop in my mind. Would they view me as the one who gave up too soon, or would they see the silent battles I had been fighting all along? Yet the most significant fear lay within me. I was torn between two lives, the one I was living, which felt like a never-ending cycle of stress and disappointment, and the unknown future that drastic measures would bring. What if I took that step and found myself more lost and alone than ever? The fear of making such a permanent decision weighed heavily on me. But so did the thought of continuing in a situation that felt increasingly unsustainable. I felt trapped in a maze with no clear exit, each path fraught with potential risks and emotional tolls. In my heart, I longed for a resolution that didn't involve tearing my life apart. But as the days passed and the situation remained unchanged, I realized that I might have to face these fears head-on if I was ever to find a sense of peace and balance again. Yet the uncertainty of what that step might mean for my future left me hesitating at the crossroads, unsure of which path to choose. As I sit here, reflecting on this journey, I feel a mix of exhaustion and a faint glimmer of hope. I've been through a lot, navigating motherhood practically solo, supporting Jake through his career uncertainties, and grappling with the idea of drastic change. It's been a relentless cycle of trying and failing to find equilibrium, and I'm at a point where I'm not sure what else to do. Emotionally, I feel like I'm standing on a precipice, gazing into the unknown. The fear of making a wrong move is paralyzing, yet I know that inaction isn't a viable long-term strategy either. My heart aches for a partnership that feels balanced and fulfilling, but I worry about the cost of pursuing it. So I'm reaching out to you, the community, hoping that someone out there has walked a similar path. Have any of you faced this kind of imbalance in your relationships? How did you navigate the fear of making a drastic decision? What helped you find clarity and peace? I realize that there might not be a one-size-fits-all solution, and perhaps I'm just venting to lighten the load on my chest. But if there's a piece of advice, a shared story, or even just a word of encouragement that can offer a new perspective, I would deeply appreciate it. Ultimately, I hope to rediscover the sense of partnership and love that once defined our relationship, or at the very least, find a way to navigate this storm without losing myself entirely. Thank you for listening and for any guidance you might offer. TLDR. I'm Emma, a mom feeling overwhelmed by solo parenting duties while my husband Jake is absorbed in work, seeking advice on rebalancing our partnership and overcoming the strain.